Hi there, this is my channel, Jaru Walks. In the year 2024, I will embark on an epic walking journey across the United States. My plan is to walk 8,000 miles across the US 3 times, via the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and the Continental Divide Trail. In the hiking world, this is known as a calendar year Triple Crown, and has only been completed by a handful of people in history. I plan to post weekly updates along the way, so you can join me for the journey. One more fun detail, kind of last minute when I was visiting with the doctor in the office, I said, hey, I have one more question. And I was like, this is out of curiosity. And so I said, I want to show you the pain that I was experiencing 2 months ago, and I would like you to diagnose what the problem was. And so I show him this part of my knee. I'm not going to go through a lot of effort to film it right now, but I showed him the problem with my knee. I explained what caused it, how it debilitated me, and he diagnosed it as a minor sprain or an extreme hyperextension of I forget what the term was, but it was the MCL. So the ligament on the inside of your left knee, that it was sprained. And then his recommendation would have been to get off of it for, an amount of time, or to minimize the time walking on it to expedite the recovery, but at the same time you would be okay to walk on it. And so when I was on trail acting as my own doctor, I did a series of tests on it, and I reviewed all the information I could on the human knee, and then I homed in on the pain appears to align with the MCL, and watched more videos on it. Was pretty convinced that it was a grade 1 sprain from a hyperextension of my MCL. And so I correctly diagnosed exactly what was injured, what caused it, and correctly assessed that it was okay to walk on it so long as the pain didn't increase. So I think there's a lot of people in the world who Google their symptoms and convince themselves they have cancer or something. And then when anyone now does medical research on their own symptoms, you get lumped in doing your own research, medical research. It just kind of has a bad connotation. But as someone who's, I think, is a pretty good critical thinker and researcher, I correctly diagnosed the sprained MCL and Giardia. So 2 for 2, pretty good. This morning I woke up, I was having breakfast and just reading the news, and I was on the New York Times homepage reading an article about how Israel launched 3 drone strikes on some American and British aid workers who were trying to bring food to starving children in Gaza, and the drone strikes killed all 7 of the Americans and Brits. But in the article they were explaining, in their defense, they did think that a Hamas member was with the convoy with a gun, and so they figured, since there was maybe a guy with a gun in the convoy, it made sense to launch drone strikes on 7 Americans and British people to get the guy with the gun who was a member of Hamas. And then it turned out this was all a tragic mistake. There was no guy with a gun in the convoy, so they just bombed 7 Americans and British people trying to bring food to starving Palestinian children in Gaza. But I bring that up because as I was reading the article, my ears start to pulse in and out, and it felt like the shelter was shaking. And I wasn't sure what was happening, but it stopped after 30 seconds. And so I'm on the New York Times homepage, and then a new article pops up at the top saying 4.8 Richter scale earthquake strikes New York City. And that's when I remember, oh wow, I'm actually literally directly to the west of New York City by like a 45-minute car ride right now. So pretty fascinating to experience an earthquake, and to then actually randomly be looking at the New York Times homepage, where I would then be informed the local news that an earthquake just struck New York City. So interesting morning. So I caught Pac-Man again hiking today. I've been basically stalking him and the few people who are ahead of me on trail for 2 months, so we're having fun just discussing like what that's like hiking alone, but then, you know, almost feeling like you're friends with the people in front of you. But the reason I wanted to do a quick video is I wanted to ask you, what did that guy on trail back there just ask us before we got into town?
Oh, if we were looking for the church.
Oh no, the other guy. Yeah,
the other guy. That was
this guy comes walking up the other way on the trail.
He comes up to us.
Don't say your answer, but just what did he ask us? Yeah.
He stops and he kind of like timidly goes, do you know how long this trail is?
And then what was your answer?
I was like, the Appalachian Trail is 2,200 miles long.
Yeah, actually he just said 2,200 miles.
Yeah.
I thought it was so funny because I was thinking the same thing. What? And then he's like, no, the trail with the white places. How long is that one? It's like, and I was like, sir, you're on the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the 2,200 mile one.
Oh my god, that was like
just deadpan stare at us the entire time.
Yeah, like,
no emotion.
Yeah, once he realized it's the Appalachian Trail, he doesn't even like laugh or anything. Yeah. It was a very funny interaction. But I was so like, it was so funny that we were both there to witness it. Yeah. Oh my god, that was hilarious. Anyway, that's it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, every single person's different with what they like, but that's the nice thing about the trails. There's, you know, you're free to hike however you want to.
Yeah, and there's just awesome people hiking it. Hopefully you haven't run into like assholes or anything.
Yeah, none of the thru hikers have been assholes, but some of the people who come like out for day hikes, we were talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, the day hikers are
well, they'll stop. It's like I was just saying, like 1/3 of the people you meet on trail, literally, who stop and talk to you, they see you have a long beard, like, oh, are you thru hiking? Yeah, and then they like start saying like you're going too fast, or you're hiking through the woods, you're not in the woods.
Someone told me that I started too early and that I shouldn't be on the trail this early.
That's funny.
And then, of course, he was a thru hiker, right?
Oh yeah. That's kind of funny that people are gatekeeping hiking.
Yeah.
So you guys are going to Seaside, right?
Yeah, I think honestly right up here by the jazz place is perfect.
All right, you just pull in right here then.
Oh my god.
So I'm in New Jersey now. That was 300 miles of Pennsylvania. You know, I'm gonna retract, if that made the edit or whatever, if I'm gonna retract my accusation that the name Rocksylvania for Pennsylvania is not warranted. It's rocky enough, I guess, that it's fair, but it's still the easiest state on the entire Appalachian Trail so far, except for Maryland. So Pac-Man and I hiked down into Delaware Gap yesterday morning, and most of the restaurants there were closed, and so we decided to order an Uber. That's funny, a deer. Look. I'm not sure if that showed up or not, but anyway, so we order an Uber. The Uber driver pulls up and he cracks the back right window down like 3 inches, and then he barks out the window, "Where are we going?" And I say, "To a diner." And then he yells back, "Yeah, but where's a diner?" And so I say, "I think the town's called Stroudsburg, but I'm not really sure." He says, "Well, all right then." And then he unlocks the doors, get in the back, and I ask him, because I'm just curious, I'm like, "Is that all right?" He says, "Yeah, that's fine, as long as it's not New Jersey." And then I have to ask, "Why don't you want to go to New Jersey?" He pauses, like it's the dumbest question he's ever been asked in his life. And then he turns around, he looks me right in the eyes and he says, because I hate New Jersey.
Did he finish already?
He's kind of dissecting it. I just landed at Mosey's Place, which is a hostel right off the trail in Port Jervis, New York. Yeah, I stopped here because I had mailed some packages here for me to pick up. So I have like a new pair of shorts that are cool. They're like designed by an artist, and it's like an ultra marathoning company. So I'm excited to have these, and they're really lightweight. I mean, they're also shorts. It's like how much? I mean, it just seems kind of dumb to call them lightweight. But anyway, the shorts that I'm currently wearing, they're also really lightweight. Like basically have holes in them. They're the shorts that I just had before I started hiking. Like they weren't picked for any reason. And so it's kind of funny that I like am wearing them every day for like 7 months now, because I did another hike before this hike, the Arizona Trail. So anyway, I'm excited to have like actual good shorts now. I also got another pair of fingerless gloves, which I use in the morning and at night. And I like fingerless because you're always using your phone. And it's remarkable how, like, if your hands or your feet get cold, you're more often, you're better off putting a jacket on to warm your hands and your feet up than you would be to put socks and gloves on. In my experience, I'm just saying this from me hiking on a trail. Because what happens is, as you get cold, the first precursor to hypothermia is that your blood flow slows to your hands and to your feet to preserve your more vital organs in your torso. And so what's happening when your hands and feet are getting cold, the cause is not that your hands are exposed to cold, it's that your torso itself is cooling, if that makes sense. And so those organs which are now sensing danger reduce blood flow to your hands and your feet to keep the body safe. And so if you ever find, like in the summer, let's say in the winter, that your feet are cold or your hands are running cold, if you put a jacket on, and if you actually try this experiment, you'll see, at least for me, this is true. If I have cold hands or cold feet, I'm like under a bunk bed right now, so I'm scrunched. But if I have cold hands or cold feet, and then I put on like an actually warm, puffy jacket, it's not until I start hiking uphill. But if I hike uphill, what will happen is it's just before you start to sweat, and you'll feel it because it feels like little like tingles sprinkling like up your back. That's like, I'm imagining the sweat beginning to form inside your skin before it pops out. At that exact moment, but just before you sweat, you'll feel the warm blood from your body start pumping into your hands, into your feet, and you will suddenly feel your hands and your feet warm up. So the last step before you start sweating is that if you have a, precursor to hypothermia, cold hands or cold feet or both, if you put the puffy on and start doing something like jumping jacks, as your body really starts to overheat, its last step is to force all that hot blood out to your extremities, and then your hands are cured, and then they're good for hours at that point, in my experience. So I find that if I'm hiking early in the morning or late at night and it's cold, that if I throw the puffy on and then I start, especially if I just go uphill, that's enough to induce sweating. And so just before the sweating hits, I literally watch it, and I can feel it every time. The hands and the feet warm up no matter what. And then I take the jacket off and my body's warm and my hands and my feet are warm, and I don't even need to wear the gloves. It could be high 30 degrees temperature outside and I'm not wearing gloves if I try that approach. So interesting. But nonetheless, in the morning, if I'm going, it's still nice to have these gloves on because it's just, I don't know, more comfortable. So what triggered that thought, though, that tangential thought, is that these gloves are missing fingertips. And so you would think to yourself, oh, I need fingertips to keep my hands warm or the tips of my fingers warm. But the fingerless gloves are a lot like throwing a jacket on. If you just get the core of your hand warm, it shoots the blood out more effectively to your fingertips. And so I don't even have cold fingertips when I'm using these fingerless gloves. It's funny. It's like, you would only know if you're actually out here experimenting with these different articles of clothing and paying close attention to your body over time. You see how these things work. So anyway, long story short, I have fingerless gloves now and these cool shorts. And then I'll show you real quick. Staying here tonight because I'm getting back on trail. But what you're seeing is one bunk bed, a second bunk bed, and a third bunk bed back there. And this is pretty typical for like a hostel on trail, just bunk beds cramped into a room. And so you can imagine in the thick of it in like a month or 2 months that these beds will all be full, and there'll be a competition for these resources because there'll probably be, 20 or 30 people coming down trail, and you'd have to call in advance to even get this kind of a thing booked out. And then there's a closet over there with clothes in it. And if you imagine, and you thought about it for a second, you would say, why are there clothes in that closet? Why would it come with clothes in it? And the reason that there's clothes in that closet is that, what do they call it? I'm just blanking right now, but there's a term for these clothes, but they're basically like these backup clothes. Maybe hiker clothes. Anyway, but when you're washing your clothes, most people on trail only bring their one, pair of pants or their one shirt. And so, because you don't want to carry the extra weight. And so when you're washing your clothes, if you didn't have these hiker clothes back here to wear for a couple hours while you're washing your clothes, then you would literally have to bring a whole nother set of clothes just to not be naked when you're washing your clothes. So virtually every hostel has a closet with hiker clothes where you just put them on while you're washing your clothes, and then you put your clean clothes back on. So there's a million other little things these hostels have that are like optimized for the hiker's experience that are all just brilliant. And so, but one of the fun ones is that they all have hiker clothes.
I'm listening to the fellows.
Me too. That's what I can pull my camera out too. So Mosey and I just took a little detour trip while all my stuff was charging at the hostel. Today is the solar eclipse happening in the United States, and upstate New York is where I am, at least, is in like the 90th percentile zone of the totality. So it's still a pretty dark day, although it's not 100%, but still, really cool. And so it's actually happening right now. We just got to this park where people are hosting telescopes for the public to use to look at the eclipse, and they put little like sunglasses as a filter on the scope so you don't hurt your eyes. It's kind of a cloudy day, unfortunately, but even though it's cloudy, you can still see the sun through the clouds, and you can literally see the like eclipse almost more clearly. It's almost better because it's not like the sun's overwhelming your eyes, but the sun right now almost looks like the moon, you know, like a crescent moon, like a thumbnail moon, because the moon itself is actually right in front of it, you know, but it's not 100%. So pretty cool. I'll try and get some videos of it, but I don't think they're going to be that good. But anyway, we're here. I guess you can check it out.
Yeah, Mom, look, you can see the sun Mom, you can see the moon over them. That's so cool. Ah, that's cool.
Well, I have to take a photo. I want to go like break into it and sleep in it, but not break in. There's a light on inside. What? What? How does that have electricity running to it?
I'm telling you.
Oh my God. I literally want to go in. Oh my God, there's like a widow's peak on top.
To this northern terminus. We were taking that up in there, and at one point, I said to Lisa, I said, do me a favor, drop me right here. I'm gonna hitch up to the northern terminus. You turn your car around and get the hell out of here. That's what I said to her.
Sounds like sisters.
We were to see,
I'm having the second realization of spring now. First one came in Virginia, then the cold weather came back. But I suspect that Virginia actually is having spring now because it's so much further south. But spring is now coming to the upper East Coast in a separate wave because, you know, the further north you are, the later spring comes. And it's cool because I've seen spring try to come twice now. And you can literally feel the difference in the morning based on how the birds behave. When it's a warm morning, they're all chirping and they're all running around. And it's funny because you see like, I don't know, up here like 15 different types of birds. And they're all different birds and they could like theoretically attack each other because they're all little, you know, gangsters in their little squads. But they're all running around amongst each other, you know, even in the same bushes, just like, they're all like, you know, at least today we have a peace between us because it's warm and nice. So it's absolutely true. You can feel the arrival of spring in the way the birds chirp. You can feel their happiness because they've been sitting in the cold all winter too. It's pretty cool to see that. Swamp is flooded. Take reroute. It's almost useful. I'm literally walking on a floating board. Whoa, that's deep. Ooh. I don't see a white blaze. Wow. Ooh, that's cool. This is a bad idea. Woo, woo. Okay. Okay, maybe not. Wow. Probably should have taken the road detour on this one. It's always annoying when the trail's not clear, but it's especially annoying when the trail's not clear in a waist-deep bog in winter. Well, I mean, it is April, but it's still cold outside. Oh my God. But luckily the boards float in the water, so I'm assuming these floating boards are the trail. Oh, oh. Oh God. Oh man, that's cold. Oh. Ooh. Ooh. Whoa. There is a board down there, and it is making a difference. Got me at least back up to knee height, but it's slippery as soap on the ground. It's funny, if you look ahead, you can see the width in the trees. Ow. Indicating that's the trail direction. Oh my God, when I slip off the board, look how deep it goes. Look at that, up to my waist. Oh. We're back to cruising. I don't like it though. Those boards are floating up there again. Oh, it's actually cold. Ugh. Ugh. Huh. 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 Okay. So helpful. Thank you, boards. Oh God. Ooh. Ooh. That's something. Oh. Moving stuff out of the way. Yeah, that detour was unnecessary. No problem whatsoever. Look at this. Let's check out how my waterproof socks performed there. Oh. They're waterproof in both directions. So you might wonder who would throw their trash off the road into the woods. And I mean, it is New Jersey, so, but that's more likely that it's a bear. You can see it's been mauled, and where it got thrown from, it's kind of like exploded out. So that means that there are bears out here now. So I'm walking down this road, and then I started having flashbacks to like 2 summers ago, walking through the Netherlands. It looks to me just like the Netherlands, like the long, I mean, walking on a high road that's elevated above the field level, because the field is just, you know, permanently flooded with water below the water level out here. And then just these kind of like long kind of marshes out as far as the eye can see. The difference would be you'd have to like use an eraser to scratch those mountains out. But, and then obviously it's a lot, I mean, the Netherlands is just more beautiful. So it wouldn't be like mud, it would just be beautiful green grass out there. But anyway, just flashbacks. If you ever wonder what the Netherlands look like, it's something like that, a better version of that. Alrighty, so a quick little update. I just found out that I hiked this whole road. I have to go back because the trail actually goes on the other side of the field. Oops. So I'll just use this moment while I'm walking on an easy flat road to do a video, because it's hard to do long videos when you're walking on the real trail because it's so rocky. You'll roll an ankle if you don't watch where you're walking. And I'll let this car pass. Oh, actually, yeah, I would love a ride. Just to the end of the road up here. I'm doing the AT and I came the wrong way. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, man.
Well, best of luck.
I appreciate it. It's funny, I was just talking earlier about how like it looks like the Netherlands. Like I stopped and I walked like all the way down. I'm gonna show you real quick. These are like the mistakes you make. I just walked. It's because I was filming myself, of course. I walked all the way, you can't even see into this road. I walked like half of a mile down that road before I looked at the map and I realized, oh crap, it was a turnoff here. I mean, I had looked ahead. I thought I knew where I was going, but I was wrong. So now I get to walk into the Netherlands. Anyway. That. So, yeah, I got some interesting updates in the last couple of days, just from, just keeping tabs on the people who are ahead of me through YouTube and Instagram and whatnot. So right now I'm hiker number 4 northbound on the Appalachian Trail. Number 1 is Lost Boy. Number 2 is Andrew Gorehouse, whose trail name is Haystack. And number 3 is Sparrow. And so number 1 and number 3, and so Sparrow's the guy that like we met back in that shed when it was raining a couple of weeks ago. And so number 1 and number 3, Lost Boy and Sparrow, are both going for Calendar Year Triple Crowns, which is why they're out here so early. And number 2, Haystack, is just out here for the Appalachian Trail. And so within the last week or so, and it's now the first week of April, Lost Boy at some point and Sparrow at some point both hopped off trail where they were at to go ahead. So I'm assuming like they flew or caught a train or something, but they went ahead to the very end of the Appalachian Trail where Mount Katahdin is. That's the last like feat of the trail, is you climb Mount Katahdin. And they were both going to try and get summits of Katahdin. The reason being, sometime around the first week of April or the end of March, Katahdin is closed. There's no way to even get a permit to summit it, because it's basically called like the end of winter snow and muddy season, and it's to protect the trail. So in the winter, you can get a special 5-page permit to get approved to go up, and it's like, yeah, just a much more serious deal. And then otherwise in the summer and the fall, you don't even need a permit. You can just go up because the trail's clear. It's still a hard hike though. And so anyway, Lost Boy is now hiking the Arizona Trail, which I just hiked in the fall. But he's off on the Arizona Trail now, and I suspect his reasoning for that was, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but we'll bring it all home. That Lost Boy's reasoning was, my only way to get to the top of Katahdin is either through a winter permit and getting up in the snow, or waiting until the end of May when the muddy season ends. And so the scary thing about waiting until the end of May is the window that they'll open Katahdin is somewhere between May 15th and June 15th. And I will say, once you press past about May, like anything past May 15th is crazy hard to finish a Calendar Year Triple Crown. But like when you get beyond like May 30th, like it's like, man, that's really hard to finish a Calendar Year Triple Crown at that point. Really hard. And so like you would, to put it in perspective, you would have to be pulling something like averaging maybe over 30 miles per day at that point, every day. Even when you stop in town for groceries, you have to still get 30 miles done a day, I think, roughly, which that's crazy hard. So Lost Boy's calculation, I assume, was if I can't get up in winter on this permit, then my best bet to still get Katahdin on a continuous path is to just go elsewhere for a month and come back and, you know, line up your arrival at Katahdin with sometime around mid to late May. And then you kind of assure that you're going to get in through come to Katahdin when it's been opened, past the muddy season. And then I also suspect part of it is that we just got like 2 to 3 feet of snow dumped in the Whites. It was like a late winter dusting of the Whites. I say dusting, like, you know, deep downpour of snow. And so this whole winter's been unseasonably warm, but it's now, we had a series of really big snowfall towards the end of the winter that's completely changed the Whites for those of us who are trying to get through them. It's going to be a lot harder of a hike. And so the reason I think he's off on the Arizona Trail is because the Whites are covered in snow right now, making it like 10 times slower than it would be if there weren't snow. The Whites are also the hardest section by far on the Appalachian Trail. And then lastly, if he got there May 1st, he might be sitting there for an entire month before he would be able to summit Katahdin. So that's what I'm guessing. But the interesting update for the trail is that both, man, these red-winged blackbirds are loud. I think you can probably still hear me. But the other interesting update is, so Lost Boy and Sparrow both, if I understand correctly, jumped ahead on the trail, and they were trying to actually get summits of Katahdin in the winter window. Because like I said, in December, January, February, and I think part of March, and maybe even the first week of April, there are these 5-page detailed permits you have to submit in. But if you get approved, you can attempt a summit of Katahdin via the Appalachian Trail. And so if I understand correctly, they both got approved for that. And then Sparrow was saying that, I guess, Lost Boy was struggling because he didn't have winter equipment. And again, it's word of mouth. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm not trying to say what his experience was, but that's just what I heard. But he wasn't able to make it up Katahdin. And then Sparrow also put in an attempt on it. And he made it to the tree line before kind of, he didn't like what he saw past the tree line, and then he turned back. And to put those hikers in perspective, like I said, Lost Boy's been #1 on the AT and crushing it, I think right around 25 miles a day on average, leading the pack. And then Sparrow started out slower, but then ramped up to something like 33 miles a day for a couple of weeks there, and was closing in, you know, rapidly. You know, towards the end of the trail. He might have even finished first, who knows. But anyway, he's a really fast hiker. And I'm just putting into perspective, these are like really phenomenal hikers. And when they got to Katahdin, even they struggled with kind of the snowy conditions. I know from talking to Sparrow, he actually hiked the PCT last year, and there was a massive dumping of snow on the high Sierras in central northern California last year. That was, I think it was like a once in a century snowfall, and the snowpack was something like 2 or 3 or even more times greater than the historical average. And so as a result, basically nobody actually completed a thru-hike last year, the PCT. But Sparrow was one of, if there's like 2,000 or 3,000 people that hike it each year or try to, Sparrow, I think I know that he completed it through the Sierras, through the snow, all the way to the end. But I think he was something like one of 50 or one of 75 people to actually complete that. And then he hit Katahdin, and once he saw kind of what it looks like above the tree line, was like, whoa, I'm putting words in his mouth, but I'm sure he said something like, well, he's French Canadian, so he was like, this is crazy, you know, probably he said it in French. And then he turned back. And then back in January, I was trying to summit Katahdin, trying to do a winter southbound. And that was my first video for this thru hike that I put out. And the conditions were insane. It was maybe the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Just being up there, listening to the sounds, you know, the wind ripping just right above tree line and hearing like the limbs cracking into each other. Even the way the wood sounded in the shelter when I would drop something on it, it was like this dense, it was like the wood was denser than normal, like a loud cracking noise to it, versus that kind of softer, less dense kind of like, I don't know, yeah, just a thud. Yeah, Katahdin in winter is horrifying. And so I've tried to explain to people since hiking it how bad it is, and nobody ever really, my sense is nobody ever really fully believes me, like how crazy that mountain was. And to me, it's just fascinating because I was curious to know if those guys would go ahead and try and get the winter permit. Because I mean, I guess I would have to go and see it for myself, basically, you know. And so they did both try it. They got the winter permits and they tried. And then, like, I was really wondering if Sparrow was going to make it, because he did make that PCT last year. But he got up there and, again, didn't like what he saw and he turned back. And so I'm just saying all that to say, to put into perspective how crazy Mount Katahdin is in the winter. Everybody who tried it has turned back. Even as I was doing research for my winter southbound, I read like the diary, it was, you know, he put it online, of Aquaman, who completed a successful winter southbound like last winter. And then a couple of years ago, back in like 2017, this guy Viking completed a winter southbound, and they both started in December, but neither of them as well summited Katahdin. And if you just consider for a moment that the winter southbound, if you just start at the base of Katahdin and hike south through the Whites starting sometime in the winter, like in my opinion, that is maybe the craziest hike in the continental United States. I can't think of anywhere that would be harder than that, other than maybe the High Sierras in winter or parts of the CDT in the winter through the 14ers. But the weather in the Whites is even more deadly. It's hard for people to understand how a 4,000 or 5,000 foot mountain could be more deadly than the Rockies or the High Sierras. But what you have on the East Coast are crazy high winds coming in off the oceans, very high humidity in the form of rain and snow, higher than you have in Colorado, and then just crazy cold temperatures combined with that humidity and precipitation. And not only humidity and precipitation, but humidity and precipitation that comes frequently, like all the time. Mount Washington is famous for being deadly and crazy cold. It has the coldest temperature I think ever recorded either on Earth or in the United States. Nonetheless, Katahdin is still more dangerous on average to hike in the winter than Mount Washington, is my point. And people don't believe me when I say that. And just because these other guys turned back too doesn't necessarily mean that, but it does put into perspective how crazy hard Katahdin is, I think. So that was the lecture. I don't think that was a rant. And, you know, if it wasn't interesting, you literally could have just put me on mute the whole time and watched the ducks in the water behind me. So that's what we got. Yes, I am. You see that beaver right there?
I do.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said anything.
No, I saw it too. I was just like about to.
I apologize.
No, not at all. These are the bushes that have been on this trail since Georgia. They give me bad flashbacks. Look at this old school hunting stand. So I think New Jersey is the most beautiful state so far. Look at this. The middle of a marsh with cattails. Stunning. I mean, these cattails are the tallest I've ever seen. This beautiful boardwalk. And the red-winged blackbirds are just everywhere. This goes on forever. I'm a New Jersey fan. Just because people were talking smack on it, I had such low expectations for New Jersey. But they were wrong.